class. We are back again together again. We're going to continue or actually complete our module 4, creating the human resource advantage, by working on our chapter 10, managing human resources. Many of you know what human resources is, but we're going to talk about some very fundamental things about human resources and dig a little deeper. And I ask that as you go through the chapter, think about your relationship with the human resources department of a company that you've worked for. Think about what they've done and what you've observed, and see if this particular chapter is helpful for you to understand better and get more insight as to the questions that they ask and the files that they maintain, and the kind of the work that they perform as it relate to you. The learning objectives for this chapter include defining what human resource management is and explaining its significance. We're going to summarize the process of recruiting, which is a very big part of human resources, and selecting human resources for a company. We're going to discuss how workers are trained in their performance, how it's appraised. In this chapter, we're going to identify the types of turnover companies may experience and explain why turnover is important, a very important issue, in fact. We're going to specify the various ways a worker can be compensated. Additionally, we're going to discuss the issues associated with unionized employees, including the collective bargaining process and dispute resolution. Very complicated stuff. We're going to describe the importance of diversity in the workplace. This chapter is not intended to make you an HR professional, but it is intended to give you a very, very broad overview of the human resource function. And you can utilize the information you glean here to also better understand your role within the organization and how human resources is working for you. The nature of human resources. My button is going crazy. Human resources is basically the activities in determining an organization's human resource needs. What is human resources? It's about working capital. It's about people. It's about people who are hired by a company to meet their needs. And what a human resource professional will do in the management function is going to determine what they need, and it's going to use their skills to find, train, and help the organization compensate people to meet those needs. Human resource professionals are not finance professionals, but they will be very, very helpful in the recruitment process. So human resources are going to be recruiting you. They're going to recruit people who the company may need in their organization, and they may go further with the process of training those individuals. So they are called personnel management in some companies. The nomenclature used can vary considerably depending on the industry, depending on the organization, all of that stuff. So don't get so overwhelmed by the terminology, because you may see words used interchangeably depending on what organization you're in, and some words you may not recognize at all. Just note that human resource function and what they do. What they try to do also is maximize the employee satisfaction. And we talked about this the last chapter when we talked about motivating employees. They are very much human relations as well. They should be the go-between management and the employee. They're not necessarily the go-between, but in many ways they do act in that role. And we'll talk about that when we talk about collective bargaining and other dispute issues. Planning for human resource needs. An organization needs human resource department. We have a discussion topic, I have to admit, that talks about disbanding and getting rid of the human resource department. And many people that I spoke with, particularly students, they were very, very concerned about that. They said that they totally did not agree that getting rid of human resources was the answer. Now, many of you have probably experienced this, but human resources really are employees of the company. They work for the company. Their interest is first the company and its needs, and second the employees' needs. That may sound strange, but it's because of the name of the department that handles employee training and all of that. It's called human resources, and it seems in many ways a misnomer, and it has become that because for many years individuals will have a job and they would work and they would have somebody to make sure that their rights were protected. HR would be that person. But over the years, we have found that more and more human resources is protecting the interests of the company and less so for the individual employee. That is a shameful thing, which is the reason why many organizations are disbanding their human resource department, because the nature of human resources is the people, is the workers. But let's talk about in the wonderful world and everything is perfect. What is the role of a human resource? Well, with management, they determine the number of workers needed and how many will plan to retire during the period. They are definitely involved in employee and their longevity, but they're also involved in helping individual employees go through the process of working and then accumulating sufficient funds to retire. They also forecast what individuals will be hired or determine if layoffs are required. Now, human resources doesn't do that too much in many companies, and it's in the real world. The real world, layoffs and all those sorts of things are not necessarily the role of human resources, simply because higher management, VPs, and other people in the board decide who stays and who goes, and human resources generally the people who tell you, unfortunately, and that's just the reality of it. But if everything was perfect, they would tell you. They would be making the decision who we should cut off, who we should not cut, that kind of thing, but not necessarily in this case anymore. It's just very much is dealt with in a higher level than human resource management. Nevertheless, it is a role of human resources. They forecast availability of future qualified hires. Now, again, depending on the organization, forecasting availability of qualified hires requires the human resource department manager to constantly receive new resumes, constantly talk about to management the type of individuals that they're starting to see, the assets that they're seeing in the market, and determine based on the database of individual employees and their skill sets what kind of individuals that the organization will need in the future. Developing a strategy may include outsourcing and automation of temporary workers. And in my experience, those types of activities have been always handled by the VP of Human Resources, generally an attorney. How do you plan? How do you determine who you're going to need? A job analysis is done. This is done generally by larger organizations. Why? Because larger organizations pretty much have to do a much more thorough examination of their needs of workers. Smaller companies don't necessarily do a job analysis. Why? Because it's not necessarily difficult to determine for a small coffee shop that you'll need a cashier, that you'll need possibly a bookkeeper, and you'll probably need someone who will be handling the customers or making the orders. So the complexity of the organizations is not the reason why you need a job analysis. It more or less would depend on the organization and what the organization is trying to do. The organization may say we are getting ready to open up a different department and we need our HR department to perform a job analysis to determine which employees will be best suited in this new department. So job analysis is not something old, and it's not something that's not done anymore, but it's done in a very different way today. And the reason is because the organizations are definitely using skills of external recruiting departments to do these types of works, and usually not done internally. But there are some organizations that have a department that perform job analysis, but it is far easier and cost effective for an organization to outsource this function. But in the analysis, they're going to write the job descriptions. They're going to determine what qualifications are needed, and they're going to go through a process of recruitment. Now, again, most organizations have an HR department, but depending on the budget of that organization and the number of individuals in the human resource department, recruiting sometimes is done internally or externally. But regardless of who does it, the recruitment is finding applicants that will be able to meet the need of the organization. And it may be internal to the organization or it may be external to the organization. They will take that database of individuals that they pull together and they will select them based on the application, the process, the interviewing and testing. They are going to select a person with the skills that most closely match what the organization needs. And again, this process can be very, very lengthy or it could be very short. Some organizations that are smaller don't require an extensive background check, but some organizations that are larger may require individuals to be screened and a background check done, and the selection process may take a good number of weeks, maybe a month or two. But once the employees are selected and recruited, they go through another process. And again, this is so, it depends on the organization, but they go through interview process and they go through a process where they are told about the job, they are explained, the compensation is explained, the policies and the culture. The interviewee was given an opportunity to talk about it and ask questions, but more and more in the interaction is going to be the organization assessing the individual, asking specific questions about the individual's qualifications and skills, and trying to assess based on their application and their interview whether or not this person is a candidate for further consideration. Some recruiters does go through testing for personalities depending on the organization and what kind of skill set they're looking for, to see, because some organizations require people to be more outgoing and be able to communicate with different individuals, and they're going to make certain that these people who are in these positions have the skills that are necessary to do the job well. I've done a Myers-Briggs assessment, and I honestly don't particularly favor these assessments. First of all, I don't think they have any relevance in the workplace. And secondly, they're too general, and they can be quite misleading, because if you answer a question in the wrong way, it could give you very misleading results. But recruiters are asking these kind of questions. I personally never relied on them, because I've always never seen the results consistent with the person that I actually hired. They often almost always give misleading information. I think other ways of recruiting and screening candidates is probably more efficient and more accurate. But also, before an individual is made an offer, they have to check their references and verify their educational background and their work experience. And that's important, because you know, your resume and your application may look glossy and beautiful. Your interview may be even better, but you have to be sure that the person is honest in telling you what they have done and the skills that they have. So human resource has a very huge job. They have to be very certain that the people that they are recruiting for specific jobs are absolutely qualified for the position, because it is very costly for organizations to have to hire someone, train them, and then all of a sudden determine that they don't have the skills. So the human resource professional must have some knowledge of the law and what they can and cannot do, or questions they cannot ask. And these two particular laws are particularly relevant in the workplace. Most importantly, you have to make certain that organizations are compliant with these laws as it relates to equal pay and age discrimination and Americans with Disability. All human resource professionals who have been certified are trained to understand and know these laws and how to apply them in the workplace. In fact, they are required to have ongoing continuing education to ensure that their knowledge is consistent with the laws as they change. Now, I've never had a video interview, and if you could tell me if you ever had a video interview and what was your experience. But there are sometimes not very easy for individuals to be screened going to an office. They may be in a different place or a time zone, and physical for them to be able to come to an organization and speak with them about a job may not be easy, and a video interview may be required. I have not had a video interview, but if you had one, why don't you tell me under what circumstances you had a video interview, and how did it go, and what was your experience, and do you recommend it? Human resource professionals also develop the workplace. They are critical in the training process. They also are the ones that know all about the organization and are best able to answer your questions when you're a new employee. Human resources most certainly is responsible for orientation of new employees. As you go through the chapter, think about the human resource function that you've experienced. Did you go through an official orientation? Did they give you a tour of the building? Did they introduce you to supervisors and coworkers? Did they provide to you manuals and policies that you'll need to govern yourself in this new working environment? Did they help you with socializing with new employees and giving you some idea of the culture of the company? If they did not, you need to find out why. They're also involved in the training and development. Training is going to be, and it really does depend, because some organizations have a very specific training program depending on the complexity of the specific jobs that they hired for. They may do it in a formal way in classrooms or web-based education. But they also may be on-the-job training, teaching you how to use the cash register, teaching you how to use the various software if you're an accounting clerk, that sort of thing. Development is going to be training that really builds your knowledge of management and of managers and professionals. It's going to be more or less giving you more information, giving you more skills that you will be developing um, within the organization. Developing the workforce. When you're talking about employees, you need to know what they're good at and what they're not good at. Why? Because it's going to tell you whether or not they can perform certain jobs, and they can perform most jobs, and whether or not certain jobs are more difficult for them. And they do this by, for the most part, through their performance appraisal process. And the performance appraisal process should give you some feedback. But I have to tell you, if your appraisal is once a year, you should know before that year is up if you're doing a good job. And if if you're not doing a good job, there's a problem with communication, because you must know how well you're doing your job. And the performance appraisal should very well be a validation or confirmation of what you already know. Because the communication with your supervisors there, the work product shows that you're doing or not doing your job, and it is already something that you are very much aware of. But the official appraisal is going to give you the feedback. It's going to tell you how to improve if there is a need for improvement. It's going to give you it's going to give the organization a basis for determining what compensation level, or if anything, are increasing your salary. And it's going to also give information about the quality of the firm's selection and training of you, the new employee. Now, they may be objective or subjective, but the bottom line is, depending on the organization and what they in that organization need and the position that they're evaluating, objective appraisals can be quantified. For example, accounting clerks, if they're processing accounts payable invoices, they may say they process 100 accounts payable invoices with 95% accuracy, that sort of thing. And that's important, because as an employee and you're dealing with your job, you want to be able to say, you want to have some concrete way, some quantifiable way to know if you are not meeting the expectations, or if you are meeting the expectation, or if you are exceeding the expectation. A 360 feedback system. I had this where you are evaluated by a peer, you are evaluated by someone you supervise, or you're evaluated by someone below you, or you're also evaluated by your supervisor. It is a good way to see how people of various levels see you. I found it very disturbing. I was positive overall, but it was disturbing at the same time, because I never knew people thought what they did. Nevertheless, it is a process that human resource will oversee to give you a good way of evaluating yourself from a 360-degree level. Developing the workforce comprises of monitoring the turnover rate, dealing with promotions and transfers. Turnover is when people are fired or they quit and have to be replaced by other individuals. Our organizations don't like turnover because it's very costly to recruit, hire, train, develop a new employee. Promotion is always good, but it does leave an opening for that position that has been lost. So organizations have to continue to develop employees internally to ensure that when people move out of one position, we can easily move another person in with little or no disruption of efficiency. Transfers, meaning individuals will move from one area to another, sometimes the same level or wage, but regardless, they are in another job. So we're working very hard in the workplace to try to make certain that we have the right number of individuals doing the right jobs, and downsizing will be the last thing we want to do. But there are some times when downsizing is absolutely essential, and we are talking in 2008 where people were losing their jobs left and right. People who have been working for a company for 10, 12 years are losing their job. This is a very, very difficult time. And sometimes it makes other individual employees less productive because they're concerned about their own job. But that's a part of the human resource function, and overseeing that process when or if it is necessary for an organization. When an employee separates, they may leave because they resign. They may retire. They may very well be terminated, which is an involuntary loss of job, or they may very well be laid off. But each and every employee, with some exceptions, are at will. They work for the will of themselves and the will of the employer. I work because I want to. I work because I will to work for you. And the employer says the same thing. You work for me because I will for you to work. And that at will relationship means we can terminate the relationship at any time for any reason. Organizations have to comply with law, and they can't terminate you for anything that relates to their race, religion, or age or sex. But there's going to be some more legislation that people have to comply, or organizations have to comply with when they terminate employees for cause. They have to make certain that they have to make that to document their reasons for this person being terminated. And one of the things human resources will be helpful with an organization is ensuring that the process of developing and helping and mentoring an employee to help them to improve their work product prior to termination. This ensures that the organization has done all that they could to help the employees be successful, and it does provide I guess a buffer, if you will, if the termination is challenged in court. Human resources are also involved in the wages and salary survey. This particular area is important because organizations need to make certain that the jobs that they are offering for the public are compensated consistently with standards for that particular job, for that particular workplace, that particular industry. And the wage salary survey is important information because certain jobs really need to stay within a certain range. You don't want to go below that range, and you certainly don't want to go higher than that range. A wage and salary survey, which is done generally every year, gives the human resources a good information that they will be using to guide organizational managers as they decide to hire specific areas within their department. Financial compensation is going to be the wages, and whether it's wages in hourly or tips or salary or even including bonuses, it is their financial compensation. It is how they are being paid for the work that they provide to an organization. Some organization does pay based on pieces, and again, this is depending on what you are manufacturing. They may compensate you based on commission. This is definitely important for people who are sales, people who are in marketing, and people who, work with this, selling insurance, that sort of thing. The main thing is it is an incentive system, and it definitely can give an employee unlimited possibilities of the kind of compensation that they will be paid, because the harder they work, the more successful selling that they achieve, they can make more money. They're not capped by a salary, where most organizations will have a salary or an hourly wage where they'll be paid, and it's a cap to how much they'll be paid because they can only work for so many hours, that sort of thing. But anyway, the components of work of compensating employees include most of these. Salaries, whether it be paid weekly, monthly, or annually, whether it be an hourly wage or whether it be a weekly amount or a monthly amount or a semi-monthly amount, which is bi-monthly, 2 times a month. Some organizations offer bonuses to individuals based on exceptional performance. This is going to be something that's very, very specific to an organization, and it may very well be a question that you could ask in a second round of interviews. Do you offer bonuses to your employees? Profit sharing is an individual will be able to purchase a portion of the organization, and they will be able to share in the profits of that organization. It is a very, very good way to keep really highly skilled, high-ranking individual employees. Profit sharing is a major, major bonus to CEOs and other individuals who in a company, because they provide the organization with a unique skill or gift that will be very expensive to replace. So they want to use that compensation to keep them with that organization. Stock ownership is where you buy stock of the company, and it is a way to own part of the company. And this is good not only just because you have stock in an organization, but it is your way of saying, this is part of my company. This is something that I have a vested interest in making certain that they are successful. I'm going to do everything I can, because the more successful they are, I will be successful because I'm a part owner. Benefits are, again, non-compensation. It could be pension, it could be health insurance, paid vacations, and so forth. Most organizations that hire employees, even part-time employees, do provide some kind of benefit, whether it be vacations and holidays. And some organizations even go so far as to provide health insurance and pensions. And this is very important because employees do need to take time off, and it's good to know that they'll still get paid And health insurance is very important as well. With the Affordable Care Act, organizations are more likely to provide their own insurance and not have to deal with any penalties that may very well be imposed because you're not providing insurance for your employees. But nevertheless, it is all part of the benefits, and it is not compensation directly what you would see on your paycheck. Um, some organizations, depending on how large, will provide an employee assistance program to help with personal problems that could hurt your job performance. Most people are going through a divorce, or maybe a child is sick with cancer. Some really, really, really difficult challenges. Employees can go utilize this service at no cost to them, and it's totally confidential. And they may have flexible benefit programs which allow you to purchase, allow you to pay for your I would say health insurance, co-pays, etc. On pre-tax dollars. Very, very nice benefit if an organization provides that. Sick leave and vacation, another fringe benefit, which is really good for individuals because you're not going to work every single day of the week, and sometimes you may need to take time off, and because you might be ill. Then it's good to know that you'll still get paid. And other organizations provide perks like a spa or education. Some organizations will pay for your tuition or reimburse you, that sort of thing. And again, these are all benefits that will increase the productivity of employees and also provide good leverage for recruiting top candidates. I had the wonderful privilege of working with an organization where we had a fitness center on site. I never had a problem with my weight. I certainly utilized that. It was 5 days a week. I just basically set my lunch hour. I'm not going to eat. I will just work out every single day, and it was great. It was a great opportunity because the organization cared about the employees, and they wanted them to be healthy. And so that was great. They had an indoor cafeteria with healthy foods. Oh, they had some unhealthy foods, but it also had the indoor fitness center with swimming and very good a treadmill, etc. But this is just one of the many things that an organization can do to keep good employees, keep them loyal, particularly when you can't pay them a lot of money, but you can compensate that lower wage with some other perks that I've mentioned. Some organizations are unionized. It makes things difficult, challenging. But when our employees are unionized, they have better pay and working hours and conditions on average. But no, some organizations do not have unions. So the collective bargaining process is a process where management and union come together on how to compensate their staff and the working conditions that they will agree to. And it is a formal contract. That means the organization has to comply with those. And they are also talk about how to deal with employees with disciplinary actions and all sorts of things. I mean, so a unionized employee, it makes things much more complicated, and most certainly the Human Resources Department has to be very much knowledgeable of this, and usually the HR department has an individual as a lawyer, just to make certain that the organization understands their rights and also understand what they are required to do in light of unionized employees. And with unionized employees, you have to deal with the possible downside, which could very well be the picketing and strikes and boycotts, which are going to be when management and labor don't necessarily agree. So in a unionized environment, it's much more complex. But in the end, I think once the two sides agree, lockouts and strike breaker type things won't be an issue, simply because both sides have determined that they want this to work, and they want to have an agreement that both sides would be able to live with. These are different types of things that will help, different types of processes that will help these two parties come together. My goal with you in this class would be just to understand what they are and understand why they're different. The conciliation, the mediation, and arbitration. And that's really all. I don't expect you to be experts in understanding the process of unionization and what happens when the two parties don't agree. Now, all in all, I think unions provide a great opportunity for employers to get the most talented employees, and it also provides some protection to the employees. Both sides wins, but as you can see, many organizations are not unionized, and they are up to the at-will doctrine, where I can fire you for any reason, and you can terminate your employment by resignation for any reason. But there are still some areas where unions are still prevalent. I think that would be in the auto industry. That would be teachers and nurses are still under union contract, as well as truckers. But that's going to be, I would say, we're still dealing with a small percentage of workers today that are currently under a union contract. Do you think human resources is a good thing? Do you think we should get rid of it? And again, as I told you, there is a discussion topic talking about human resources and whether or not it should be done away with. I would love to hear from you. If you, when you read that discussion topic and read the actual uh, uh, article, tell me what you think. Based on your understanding of human resources, do you think it's important to get rid of it? Why do you think it should be getting rid of it? Or what types of things you would suggest should be done to improve the role human resources have with the employees? And finally, let's talk about the role of workplace diversity. Again, we're talking about people of different genders, race, and ethnicities, nationalities, and abilities. We want people who don't look like us, who don't think like us, who don't act like us to be in the workplace, because it provides that kind of differences in valuing and a different perspective, which means that an organization can always be in the most competitive advantage, because your customers are not going to always look like you, and you need to be able to make certain that you can understand their needs. And the way to understand their needs is to have people working for you who are just like that population that you're trying to reach. It is always a good thing to have diversity. We are talking about a global marketplace. We're talking about more and more of our work, and more what we do is going to impact the globe outside of the borders of our country. Therefore, diversity is going to be essential. And the organizations that respect diversity will be the ones that are going to be around for years and years to come. So this is just giving you how important it is. Companies are improving their programs to recruit and retain employees of diversity, and their census are predicting that 50% of our population is going to be a makeup of minorities as they determine what a minority is. That means that if we're going to have a good workplace that has talented individuals, we're going to be requiring that our workforce show the diversity of our customer base. That means we're going to make certain that every population is served if in order for us as an organization to get the customers that we want. We're going to be diverse in our orientation. We're going to be cultivating values, and we're going to minimize any problems that affect the diversity in the workplace. So the benefits are many, and some of them are listed here. I would say the most productive use of human resources when you have many different people with many different perspectives. Conflict is reduced because they learn how to respect each other, and we learn how to work with each other who are different from us. The relationships are productive. Why? Because you work with people that are different from you. You know how to communicate. The commitment to the organization, because they know that I don't have to be like everybody else. I can be me, the way I look and the way I speak and the way I conduct myself, and still be a part of this organization. It is definitely important for innovation and creativity. People of different groups can provide perspective and creativity that you would never get if you had everybody who looked alike. The ability to serve the needs of a diverse customer, that cannot be overemphasized. In fact, I think that's probably the first thing on the list. You are able to serve your customers, your diverse customers, because you have a diverse employee base, and customers notice that. So as we think about that, we need to make certain that we have programs in place to ensure that we have people that are well represented, particularly in different areas of the organization. Affirmative action programs, again, are important, and they move you in that direction. But we don't want to have laws to tell us how many people we should have of a different group. We want to hire the groups of individuals from that base, because we know how important it is to us in our longevity. So as you continue through this chapter, think about these two questions. What activities are involved in acquiring and maintaining appropriate level of qualified human resources? Name the stages of selection process. Also, the question would be, do you think HR is still a viable institution? If you don't, why? If you do, why would you think that? And what is the significance of a performance appraisal? How do managers appraise employees? Why would anybody want to be appraised for their work? What good could come of someone telling you how well you're doing all year? And give me your experience with a performance appraisal, good and bad. And any suggestions of what types of things should be placed in a performance appraisal. And as you go through this chapter, you're not going to be an HR professional, but I think you'll have a better understanding and appreciation for the human resource function and how it affects you day to day. Again, as I have said in the past, thank you very much for listening, and I will see you in the next one.